a young girl who loved her family more than anyone, but in North Korea, that love soon became a trap created by the regime. The path she chose to help her family turned into a road of hell. A young girl's escape risking her life. Now that story begins. Ji-eun alias was born into an ordinary family in North Hamgyong province. They were not a wealthy household in Pyongyang, but thanks to her mother who sold goods in the marketplace, the family could survive moderately well. To the neighbors, their family even looked like one that lived comfortably, not lacking too much. She had a father, a mother, and one older brother, but that peace did not last long. When her father suffered a great accident in the factory, fortunately he survived. He lost his leg, but at that time Ji-eun believed that somehow the family could continue to live together. However, one day, another accident was reported. They said that her father had died in that accident. For young Ji-eun, that was all she knew. She only remembered the image of her mother and brother holding a single piece of paper in their hands and weeping endlessly. She did not know what that paper was, nor that it was in fact her father's last letter. All that remained in her heart was the air of collapse, the sense that the whole house had crumbled that day. After her father was gone, her mother had to support the family alone, but her health began to fail, her knees and her back hurting as she swallowed tears when nobody was around. She always hid her suffering, showing only a smile to endure each day. Time passed and soon her brother reached the age for military service. Her mother never revealed her illness. She could not burden a son who was about to leave for 10 years with the knowledge of her pain. That was her love as a mother. In front of her son she smiled brightly and said, "I am fine. Do not worry. Just go and come back." On the day he left, she sent him away with a smile. But once he was out of sight, only then did she break down and weep. Ji-eun saw that, and her chest ached as if it were being torn apart. After her brother joined the army, Ji-eun began going to the marketplace with her mother. But the strength of a sick mother and a young girl was far from enough. Her mother's illness grew worse until she was bedridden. Even when Ji-eun went alone to the marketplace to sell goods, their situation showed no sign of improving. Then one day, an older lady from the neighborhood came to them. Knowing the hardship of the family, she said to Ji-eun, "If you go to China to work, you can earn money. If you send that money back here, your mother can live without worrying about food." The woman said that her cousin was a broker, and that he would guide Ji-eun safely. She even promised that while Ji-eun was away, she would take care of her mother. Her mother opposed it with all her strength, but Ji-eun already knew the reality. Watching her mother suffer while she herself could do nothing was unbearable. Even though her mother continued to oppose it until the end, Ji-eun left a single letter behind and departed with the broker she had been introduced to. At the age of 18, Ji-eun set out on that road. She did not know at that moment how severe and how long the road ahead would be. Ji-eun went with the broker toward the border. When they arrived near the border, there were 3 other girls around the same age as her. Somehow, she felt a strange sense of relief. The road did not feel as terrifying when she was not alone. The broker had already bribed the border guards, so they could cross with ease. After arriving in China, they were taken into a small house in a remote place. Inside the house, they sat quietly, holding their breath, waiting for the journey to continue. Then suddenly, a strange man's voice was heard. It was the sound of the broker speaking with a Chinese man. Suddenly the door opened and 2 Chinese men entered together with the broker. The broker spoke in Chinese and pointed at one of the girls. The Chinese man dragged that girl away. We were frozen with terror, unable to make a single sound. Then the 3 of us remaining were pulled out by other Chinese men and loaded into a vehicle. We were being sold. Deceived by the broker, we were being dragged into darkness to be sold away. Even in that moment of terror, Ji-eun thought of her mother. If the broker had deceived her, then the neighborhood lady who introduced the broker, saying he was her cousin, must have been part of the same scheme. Ji-eun worried about her mother even more than about herself. Ji-eun was taken to work in a Chinese restaurant. She worked 18 hours a day. Her hands cracked and bled, and she had no space in her mind left for any thoughts. The work consumed everything. The money was very little, but she still received some pay. It was not even enough to buy a proper meal in China. But if she sent it back to North Korea, it was enough for her mother to survive. Through the same broker, she managed to send even that small amount of money back to her mother. 1 year passed, and Ji-eun had grown so thin and weak that she could not recognize herself. Her life was no different from North Korea. From time to time, the broker brought letters from her mother. These letters were the only reason Ji-eun was able to endure that place. But one night, the restaurant owner entered her dormitory very late. The smell of liquor filled the air as Ji-eun pretended to be asleep, frozen like the dead. That night she could not close her eyes. When morning came, the girl who had been lying beside her was gone. She had run away. The restaurant erupted into chaos, and the broker stormed into the dormitory. He looked into Ji-eun's terrified eyes and said, "If you run away, your mother will be finished too." Then he threw her mother's letter into her face. Tears fell, and Ji-eun shook with fear. But besides that neighborhood lady, there was no one by her mother's side. On her legs, there were invisible chains shackling her. From then on, whenever the restaurant owner came into her room at night, Ji-eun's fear grew stronger. She was scared and angry, and each time the fear grew deeper. One day, while crying as she read her mother's letter, Ji-eun noticed something strange. In the letter, her mother repeatedly wrote, "Your brother says he wants to eat the fish dish I used to make." But Ji-eun knew her mother never cooked fish. Her mother had a fish allergy and never once made fish dishes. She began to feel a deep suspicion. Later letters grew even stranger. Her mother's handwriting began to look different. Ji-eun realized that she had to find her mother at any cost. On another night when the owner entered her room, Ji-eun made her decision. She risked her life and ran out the door. She ran without stopping, her legs trembling, her breath breaking. In the distance she saw a church. She ran toward it, but when she arrived late at night, the doors were locked. Turning back in despair, she was about to run again when suddenly someone grabbed her hand. It was a Chinese pastor who pulled her inside and hid her. Looking at her appearance, he immediately knew she was a North Korean defector. The pastor made a phone call, and on the other side of the line was a Korean Chinese pastor. That pastor told Ji-eun that he knew of an organization that helped defectors reach South Korea, and that he would help her. He also said that once she reached South Korea, he could connect her with a trustworthy broker to bring her mother safely. Just hearing the word broker made Ji-eun's hands tremble. But she had nothing and knew no one. If she went out again, she could be caught by the Chinese authorities and sent back to North Korea. If she were repatriated, she would face years in prison. Thinking of her mother, she knew she could not allow that, so she decided to accept the pastor's help. With his guidance, Ji-eun escaped through Laos, then reached Thailand, and finally went to the South Korean consulate. From there, she was placed on a flight to South Korea. Ji-eun arrived at Incheon Airport. National Intelligence Service officers were waiting for her. They took her directly to the NIS headquarters. Because of the long years she had endured in China, she was questioned in detail. She spoke of everything she had gone through, about the broker, about the restaurant owner, about the other girls who had been with her. The NIS already knew about her family and even her acquaintances. She was amazed at their power of information. Then, one investigator quietly looked into her eyes and spoke. "Through a recently arrived defector, we have confirmed information that your mother has passed away. I am sorry." For a long time she could not say a word. Hot tears rolled down her cheeks. She cried, broken in despair, and the officers simply waited in silence. She thought of her mother, whom she had wanted to protect even if it meant staying in hell. Now gone, dying alone without her daughter by her side. Her heart felt as if it were being torn apart. When the investigation finally ended, Ji-eun was sent to Hanwon. There were piles of delicious food, mountains of dishes, electricity that never went out. Everything seemed so good, but inside her heart tightened. If only her mother had been here with her. Whenever she ate good food, whenever she tasted something delicious, her heart felt bound and the taste would vanish. After leaving Hanwon, Ji-eun came to live in a small apartment in Seoul. She sat blankly in her room, staring out the window. Then, she decided to find out about her brother, who she believed was still serving in the army. Through a broker she received the news, and once again she collapsed. They told her that her brother had died in an accident during military service. She had no more tears left. She no longer wanted water, she no longer wanted food. 2 days later, a phone call came from the NIS. It was the news that her brother, Ri Jong-hyuk, had successfully defected and had gone to Hanwon. Ji-eun was speechless. Her brother was alive. The NIS explained that the military had covered up his escape by recording it as an accidental death, in order to hide the truth of his defection. The tears that she thought had run dry began to flow hot once more. Ji-eun immediately went to Hanwon. The moment she saw her brother again, they rushed into each other's arms. Without words, both cried, holding one another tightly. It felt as if their hearts were beating again for the first time. They wept and embraced for a long time, finally speaking together. sharing all that had happened. Then her brother reached into his inner pocket and handed her an old sheet of paper. It was their father's letter. There were many words written inside, but one message stood out above all the others. He wished that one day they would leave the regime and find freedom.